All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first try at this online course thing. I'm not 100% sure how well this is going to work out, but we're going to give it our best shot. So today, whatever it is, it's actually like 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now. But we're going to be doing the links assembly project. We are currently on session 9. You can see session 9 right here. Our assignments for next week, and I've still got to redo the due dates for these. Don't worry, I'll get them done by the time class comes around. But we're working on assemblies this week. So we've got the ball joint assembly that's due. We're going to be doing the links assembly. And then we have a combine assembly and a limit and cam mates. All of these have the parts in them. So you can see here we've got the ball joint assembly. If you can't find the ball joint pieces that you made, there are downloads down here below to be able to download those, as well as with the links assignment. You've got those down below there as well. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about assemblies a little bit. So assemblies in the world of CAD. An assembly, we've talked about parts already, and we've been working with parts. We've been creating these parts using features, right? The features are like extrudes and cuts, all of these tools that we've been working with so far. So an assembly is where you take each one of those separate parts that we've created so far, and we put them all together into and instead of adding relationships like we do with lines to create a sketch, we're going to be adding mates. Now those mates work very similarly to the way that the relationships work in sketches. With mates, we're going to have mates that are plane on plane, line on line. We're going to have coincident, basically very similar to the mates that we've dealt with, or to the relationships that we've dealt with that are in the sketches already. So we're going to be taking all of these parts that we've created or that we've downloaded. We're going to be putting them into a new environment. So we're going to be working in a different type of environment now. Before we were working in a part environment where in our 3D space we could use features. Well, now in our 3D space we're just moving in these components. We're going to be modifying the components spatially related to each other rather than the components themselves. So again, we're going to be working on the links assignment. That's 10-13. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Let's bring up SolidWorks and let's get started with a new file. So let's go ahead and hit new. I don't care about that warning right there. And it should be bringing up a new file prompt for me. We're just going to go to the assembly and we're going to hit OK. And now we wait for it to load. Okay, so here we've got our assembly environment. You can see it looks very similar to our part environment. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to bring up an open prompt. Now this prompt is for the what I call it the base component or the anchor component in our assembly. There's going to be one component in the assembly that basically all of your other components are built off of. So take a car assembly for instance. The anchor component would probably be the frame in a car assembly because everything else is kind of anchored around into the frame. In this case, it just depends on what you're looking at as far as how you want to build it. In this case, we're working with the book 10-13, and the base component. Let's switch to page 2. The base component is going to be the double link. If you look here on 10-13, the double link. I'm sorry I can't show you the book as well, but the double link is going to have pieces on both sides of it. So we're going to go ahead and select the double link. Now I'm in the wrong. That's a folder from a couple of months ago. But anyway, so I'm going to go to Documents. I'm going to go to my Ivy Tech class folder, and we're going to pick the double link. So let's go ahead and click on double link. Okay, so now you can see that it's got my. I'm going to sneeze. Give me just a second. Whew. All right, that's better. So you can see that now on my screen is the double link part. You can also see that over here on the left-hand side under the Open Documents, double link, because it's currently open inside my assembly here. Now, there's two different ways that you can drop a component in an assembly. You can actually click on the screen somewhere and drop it. But here's the catch with that is, just like we do with sketches, we always want our components locked down to something environmental rather than just having them floating out in the middle of space. We always want them locked to our origin, just like we do with a sketch. So with our first component, there is a trick here that we can do. That trick is to, rather than clicking on the screen and just dropping it somewhere off in space and then having to move it, we can come right up here and watch as I hover up here to our green check mark. I'm going to hover to it, and the component should... Oh, it's just going to pop when I come up here. So when the component... See how it's up here right now? And if I clicked it to drop it, it would just be kind of in the middle of space. As soon as I come over here and hover over my tools, it's going to pop down to a certain location. If I hit my green check mark, now that component is dropped. Now the location that it put it is directly over the origin. So what it does is it overlaps the origin of the component that you've created and the origin of your 3D space that you're working with in your assembly. So now this component is perfectly overlapping the origin in our assembly space out here, because if you look over here on the left, this is now our model tree, not our feature tree. And there is a distinct difference. In a feature tree, you've got all the features that build your parts out of it. In the model tree, however, you have separate models, separate part files. And you can see here, this is our double link part file. And if I click my drop down next to that, I can see all of the parts that make up that double link part file, including these. This is our universal coordinate system from that part. So when you drop a part in, it's going to bring all of that information over with it. However, it doesn't override the information in our assembly, because if you look up here above this part, here's all of our universal coordinate system in our assembly. So these two things are, they are separate, but they can relate to each other. You can see here, there's the origin in our assembly, and if I expand this and hover down over my origin here, you can see that that origin is overlapping the origin in the assembly. Watch this blue dot right here. As I hover over the other origin, it's going to turn orange because they are overlapped, as well as all of the right, top, and front planes. It will overlap all of those as well. Okay, so we've got our first component in here. One other thing that we can see up here in our feature tree is on the left-hand side of where it says double link. Between that and our little icon here, meaning that this is a part, is an F in parentheses. That F means fixed. So the first component that you drop into an assembly is always going to be dropped fixed. It is not going to be movable. So you either have to put it in the exact spot that you want it initially, or you're going to have to go through, unfix that item, and then move it to the right spot. But it's easier just to go ahead and let it drop over the origin. That's going to lock you down. So instead of clicking out here in space, you're just going to go up and you're going to hit that green check mark. Okay, so now we've got our first component dropped. Next we need to drop, I believe we're dropping 4 more of this particular component. So in order to drop additional components, I'm going to show you 2 different ways, all right? The first way is how you would do it if you've already have that component on the screen like we do here. We already have this double link on the screen and we need 4 more, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my control key. With my control key held, I'm going to come over here to my model tree. I'm going to click on the component that I want. And as I click, hold, and drag off into my model space, you'll see that now I've got another one of those. I'm going to go ahead and let go of my mouse. Now I've got 2 of those. What that does is that copies the model tree component over into our model space and makes a second one. You can see here that we've got double link, and then in carets we've got a 2. That means that is the second one that we have dropped. Now, over here on the left-hand side, you can see where we've got the F up here on the first one. We now have a negative on the second one. That is because of this. That component is not fixed in space. It is movable. It is loose. It is not fully constrained. So we can move that around, which is what that negative means. It means it is not fully constrained. Just like a sketch is fully constrained, we can fully constrain our assembly items too. Now, in some cases, we don't always want to fully constrain the assembly items, but in other cases, we do. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and show you the second way to drop these components out here. So I'm going to go up to my Assembly tab in my ribbon. You can see here in the ribbon, all of our tabs in the ribbon have changed. And not all of them, but quite a few. So we've got Assembly, we have Layout, we have Sketch, and we've got the Evaluate. So really the Assembly one is the main one that is changed. So in the Assembly tab, up above here, you can see that we've got a bunch of new tools. We've got Insert Component, Mate, Linear Component Pattern, and underneath that are the circular patterns, pattern-driven component pattern, etc. So Over from that, we've got smart fasteners, which we will not be using. Then we've got move component. This can be used to precisely move these components. We've got show or hide component, and then we've got a couple of assembly features that we won't get into here either. So, somebody's mad about a possum on next door. Okay, so the second way to put additional components into our workspace here, we're going to click on the drop-down, or we're going to click on Insert Component. And as I click on that, we're going to get that same prompt and that same open screen. Now, if I already had my components open, if I had any components open, it would not automatically open this screen. It would just have a number of assembly components, a number of parts listed here in the Open Documents section. If I had parts there that are listed and I did not find the part that I wanted to put into here, I would go down to the Browse, click that, and that would also bring up this particular prompt. Okay, so now we are still on the double link, so I'm going to click on double link and I'm going to hit open. Now I need 3 more of these double links. To get the 3 of these, I could either, if I click once at this point, it's going to drop one, exit the insert component tool, and continue along its merry way. But I don't want to do that. I want 3 more. So if you come back up here to the insert component tool, we've got our check mark, which is what drops it immediately over the origin. We've got our X, which exits the tool, and then on the right of that, you can see we have keep visible. So I'm going to click on keep visible, then I'm going to come out into my workspace, I'm going to click once. You can see as I click once, it dropped a component, but it didn't exit the tool. I'm still inside the tool. So now I can click again, it dropped another component, but I'm still inside the tool. Now I can click one last time. Now I've got 3 additional pieces out there, making us 5 total, including our original. And now I'm just going to hit my red X to exit the tool, because if you hit that green check mark, it's going to drop one over the origin, remember? So now I'm out of the tool. I've got my 4 additional links to my first one, and that is it for as far as dropping the original components. So go on to the next video if you are ready to continue past this point.